Hi, this short video is specifically for my HU 103 Humanities class, Human Values. I hope you've all done well over the last few weeks with this quarantine and not being on campus. I want to just review quickly with you how we're going to wrap up the semester. We are now a couple days into final exam week. First of all, we started the course with the intention of reading 4 different books. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to the 4th one on religion, a cognitive science approach to religion. But we did spend a great deal of time on Jason Stanley's book and related topics. We spent a good deal of time on Harari's Sapiens book. I hope you enjoyed it. Had a chance to finish reading this since spring break. I assigned the first 3 chapters or so in the Steven Pinker book. I hope you enjoyed reading the beginnings of that. Teaching from home like this has been very difficult for me. I had some challenges I wasn't expecting, some health issues, but I'm looking forward to finishing up strong with each of you. I don't mind giving incompletes. If anybody wants to have extra time to do any of these things, I am totally okay with that, even if it takes the entire summer. If you're graduating and you need to get a grade in right away, let me know and I'll put a grade in right away for you. We will have the essay that you've already completed. Some of you have gotten the feedback on that, others have not. I've found it very, very difficult to bring 4 of my online classes, 4 of my face-to-face classes, to bring them online as remote learning. At the same time, I'm also teaching an online philosophy course. So this has been very, very difficult. I get dozens and dozens of emails, and I have been unable to keep up with all of these things. So it's not finishing the way that I wanted it to. So for that, you have my apologies. I hope that by exposing you to some interesting ideas and some interesting reading, you have been able to get a sense of what this course is about. The course focuses upon the humanities as a form of knowledge. Remember how we started the semester talking about the humanities as a form of knowledge, just like business courses or chemistry courses or math courses or nursing courses. The knowledge here, though, is on what it means to be human. With Stanley, we looked at the political nature of ourselves. In particular, we looked at how authoritarianism and perhaps even fascism is rearing its head in different parts of the world, including the United States. With Harari's book, Sapiens, we look at a historian who's taking a totally different approach to human history, putting it in a very, very broad biological, anthropological context. With Steven Pinker, we see a cognitive scientist and linguist who is looking at human nature and rejecting the idea that we are blank slates. So I hope that these 3 approaches, which do cohere, they're consistent, have given you a sense of the kinds of things that humanities can focus upon. We didn't do art and literature this term. That was not my intention. But regardless of what the subject matter was, I would maintain that the study of the humanities, philosophy, literature, the things that we've looked at, give us knowledge about what it means to be human, and therefore is very, very important for us. As Steven Pinker, is fond of quoting Anton Chekhov, the great Russian playwright. Mankind will be better when we understand what we really are inside. You remember early in the semester I talked about the Delphic oracles saying on the Temple of Apollo to know thyself. And we also looked at some other statements of what it means to be human. I will post that early PowerPoint on Blackboard for you to refer to. It'll be an abbreviated version of that. What I'd like you to do now is to focus on finishing the semester. In this video, I just want to kind of go over what that's going to look like, and then I have a few words about Harari and Pinker, and that's it. Posted to Blackboard is a 2-page document here called Essay 2 and Short Reflection. I would like you to write an essay, 4 pages in length, approximately, on the Harari book. Some of you have already started working on that, and that's wonderful. If you've already started something, then keep going in that direction. I've given you several questions in Harari to choose from. I've also given you 3 questions on Steven Pinker. And one question overlaps with Pinker and Harari's book, if you're so interested in doing that. So choose the question that you're best prepared to answer, and please get to me via Blackboard submission. And if that fails, then via email as soon as possible. There is no firm deadline for this. If you get it to me by Sunday or Monday, I'll submit your grades on Monday. If for some reason you need more time, that's perfectly fine. And I will be available for phone call consultation starting this Friday. If people wish to talk to me, we can chat online, or we can chat on the good old-fashioned telephone. In addition to the 4-page essay, I'd like you to do a 1-page reflection. It's not very long, but it should be thoughtful. I've given you a prompt for that. I think it's a very good prompt. It looks at the nature of the humanities as a form of knowledge. And I'm kind of putting it into the contemporary perspective, even in terms of COVID-19 and what's going on in the world right now. So something that's thoughtful. It could be more than a page. It could be single-spaced. It could be double-spaced. I'm not looking for something long. I'm looking for something very thoughtful, and it could be very concise. This is not the place to talk about how the humanities are all wonderful and how much you like the Harari book or how much you like the Stanley book. Those are interesting insights, but that's not the place for it. I really want you to kind of dig deep inside of yourself and take a step back from the material and take a step back from this rather crazy, challenging semester we've had, and think about the humanities as a form of knowledge and how it fits in with your learning, your career trajectory, and in particular, building upon the prompt that I've provided for you. So, that should take you, an hour or 2. That's at the most. That's about it. And I think this will give me what I need to have to evaluate people with a final grade, which I'll get in as soon as I can. I want to say a couple things about the Harari book. We've talked about it in great depth. We didn't talk about the chapters towards the end. But I think we've gone far enough in this book for you to carry on independently with one of these questions, which gives you lots of leeway in terms of what you want to focus on. Remember, Harari is an historian. He's practicing a kind of history that's very, very broad. Some people have referred to this type of history as being big history. It talks about everything. And he starts the book talking about the Big Bang, it's also, a book that has garnered lots of attention. It's one of the very important books of the last decade, something that everybody should be aware of. Much like Pinker's book is one of the most important books of the last 2 decades. It's something people should be familiar with. That's my final thought on Sapiens. In terms of our course, what I'm really looking for here is for you to see how Harari's book helps us look at what it means to be human, what is the human condition, what is our human nature, and what about the humanities as a form of knowledge about ourselves. He gets very philosophical towards the end of the book. There's a question that deals with that part as well. You could talk about the cognitive revolution. We had some excellent discussions. I hope you recall those. You have notes on those class discussions. Make use of those. Okay? As far as Steven Pinker goes, I've posted a short, 22-minute long video from Steven Pinker's TED Talk the year after this book came out. And it's optional, I guess, if you don't want to look at it. If you're not going to answer that question, I think you would find it interesting. It's kind of humorous. You get a sense of his personality. If you've read the introduction preface and the first 3 chapters, you get a sense of his thesis. For a long time, people have thought of humans as not having a human nature. We are a blank slate. to use a word that's attributed to John Locke, although he didn't really talk about that in those words, but that's the concept he had. Especially in the 19th century, we see a move towards looking for cultural explanations for what makes us human. And even today, building off of the 20th century, the mid 20th century, the late 20th century, the idea that we are products of culture is still the dominant idea out there. Well, culture exists quite clearly, but Pinker says that's not it. Culture does not make where we are. In the debate between nature versus nurture, between having a fixed human nature, which means that we are, the product of biology, of our genes, which express themselves in certain ways. And of course, on the other side, we have the idea of nurture, which means not just how our parents raised us, but it means culture, it means education, the experiences in our society, our historical experience. The pendulum has begun to swing back and forth now. It's no longer so much nurture, it's much more nature. We can't say it's 50-50 or 70-30 or 60-40, but the idea that we don't have a human nature is not being held up by contemporary research in a number of fields: sociobiology, evolutionary psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, and a host of other fields. It seems like we do have a human nature. Now, what about culture? Well, culture does inform us. We do respond to our life experiences, but like I tell my classes, culture does not fall out of the sky like snow or rain. It's not something that's other than us, external to us. Culture bubbles up from within us. Our culture is what it is because our brains are the way they are. So culture is an outward manifestation of how our brains operate in a particular environment. And this is one reason why Pinker attacks some of the strong statements about everything is culture. We have no nature. It's clearly an incorrect position. That's certainly my position, that we need to look at more than just culture. Although I spend a lot of my time looking at culture, we need to understand where culture comes from. That's Pinker's critique of culture, again, he argues that we are not blank slates. In fact, we do have a human nature. So just be careful with that. Some people who write about this question sometimes jumble his argument. The blank slate book is not arguing for the idea we have a blank slate. It's arguing against the blank slate. And again, I would point you to that 22-minute TED Talk, which is very fun to listen to and gives you a good overview of his argument. And again, you only needed to go as far as the first few chapters in this book. If you like the topic and you want to read more about what he has to say about parenting or feminism or politics or neuroscience later on in the book, then you may want to hang on to it. So that's my short overview on Pinker. Look to the elements I've posted to Blackboard, and again, good luck as you wrap up the work for this semester, and good luck with all of your courses. Thanks.